Hi, I'm Martin, and I have a big problem. This is the pile. As you can see, I buy way too many anime models, and I gotta get these guys out of their boxes. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna open all these boxes just for you. Welcome to Cape Frenzy. Alright everybody, welcome back to Cape Frenzy, episode 10. We reached episode 10, yay! I haven't even reached episode 10 in season 1. So it's quite an accomplishment for me to have done this for 10 weeks. I'm actually kind of surprised myself that I was able to keep up the schedule. So today's new episode, I believe, will be this one up here. So today, if I get this right, it should be a very certain figure, because we have all of his friends out. Well, except Toga. Maybe you wouldn't consider Toga her friend. But we have all the figures out, and that means I can open up this one now. And I accidentally cut into the photo a little bit. Yay! Okay, so today's Ami photo is a kimono photo. Very cute. I quite like this one. I wish I just didn't cut into it. Whoops! And today's character is Deku. So we got Deku today. Let's talk about Deku's box. So the Age of Heroes Deku. This box is fairly similar to Froppy's and Momo's, where it's just green. It has a picture of Deku on the front, and then there's a picture of Deku on the side. Then there's the classic 3-panel picture on this side as well, which is red, green, and, well, just red and green basically. There's not much else on it. And then the back of the box has a picture of Deku and the model you're getting. The bottom has just your general information, and the top has the Age of Heroes line. Now I'm just gonna do something. I'm gonna grab Froppy's box for a second. So the interesting thing that I've noticed on this box right off the bat is that they've changed just the main logo. So on the top box, on Deku's box, you have this white, or this red and white logo called Jae. Jae? Jaya. Jaya? Well, in Froppy's box, you just have a barcode. Now, like, to compare boxes on this, so this one says that it's from Crane King, while Froppy's box just says the volume number and the set number. So, like, as I said before, Froppy's newer version box comes with like 2 sets of figures, while Deku's box just says Deku on the bottom. So this was probably during the time that Bandai Spirit took over most of the manufacturing for Banpresto Bandai products for adult collectors. Just the differences. So you see the yellow and the red difference. It's not really that impressive. Again, it's just Deku in green. It actually kind of mirrors Froppy's box a little bit. So the box, yeah, same thing, 6 out of 10. Not very impressive, but you know, it's still a box. It shows out the figure. That's all that really matters about this figure. So let's get to the packaging. Alright, we're gonna try a new angle today just because I forgot to charge the other camera and I have a tight schedule. So we're just gonna use this camera over here, and hopefully this will work a little bit better, a little more interesting. Plus you get a cool little side view of the figure itself. Oh, this is hard to get in. Open! Open! Open, you box! Oh god! It's okay. Oh, okay. So in this box you have the barcode as usual, like the QR code. And then, is it gonna be a coffin box? It's a coffin box! Our favorite, guys! It's a coffin box! You know, these are my favorite packagings. The coffin box. Oh, man. Okay, well, let's take a look at the tape. Nothing in the box? No, nothing in the box. Packaging-wise, the tape on this, well, it's not super tight. As you can see right here, there's a little like jump in the tape. So it's not super good. He doesn't fall out like Froppy did, so he's a little bit tighter in the packaging. That's better, I guess. And then we'll just get this out. So normally you would cut the tape, but I'm not going to because it's really a waste. Okay, so Deku comes in a pack of 3. We have the base, the body, and Deku's head. Like that. So packaging wise, this is pretty much crap as well, just like the other prize figures. These are meant to be in cranes, like in the UFO catchers where you put your hand down and grab your figure. So don't expect too much from the packaging on the Age of Hero line. Yeah, like a 6 out of 10 again, because like, it's just a bag and some cardboard. No bubble wrap, no anything. Nothing special. Just pop it out. There's the base. The base has 2 pegs on it. Then Deku himself. His feet have 2 pegs on the bottom. And that will probably just go like this. Need to bend the leg just a bit. Solid, doesn't fall out, that's good. And then Deku's head. So for Deku, his head hole opening is like a T. And then you have just the top peg here that's quite long, actually, looks pretty funny. Like that. Now that Deku's out of the box, we can now talk about the figure's stats. Deku comes from us from Band Presto, and he was part of the Age of Heroes line. He is volume 2 in the line, and he stands at just over 7 inches tall, with a base at around 5 inches. The figure came out in 2019, if I remember right, and it cost just over $56.33 Canadian. That's with shipping included. It's more likely around $30 Canadian with $20 shipping. Alright, so now we move on to the meat and bones of the review, which is his sculpt and paint. So as you most know, I have to talk about his quirk. His quirk is called One for All, and One for All is a specialty quirk because Deku was born without a quirk. Spoilers! He had no quirk, and he actually obtained his quirk from the mighty All Might. By obtaining All Might's quirk, which was him eating his hair. Honestly, All Might's one of the coolest characters in anime history. He's like the really good parts of Superman just kind of distilled. But like, when he was just like, hey Deku, come and eat my hair, you're just like, what? That's some fetish for ya. Midoriya basically gained All Might's abilities, which is enhanced strength, enhanced endurance, and just like super, well, I guess super speed would be part of it too. And he's kind of like the Superman of the My Hero Academia universe. So for anybody who's born with a quirk, over time they learn how to use their quirk. But for Deku, because he was not born with a quirk and given the quirk later, his body had to adjust. And when his body adjusted, he kind of broke his arms while fighting because every time he used One for All, it basically destroyed his body. And his suit actually kind of shows the process of him learning. So we can basically talk about Deku's whole figure now that you know the quirk. Because the quirk comes into play when I'm going to talk about some of the attributes on this figure. Let's first go with Deku's face. So for Deku, his face is pretty good. His expression is pretty good. It's clean. It has a nice look to it. And I know I say clean a lot, but when it comes to anime figures, clean is very important to the look of a figure. Now, his face is kind of interesting because I feel like his face is just a bit squished. if you know what I mean. Like, do you see that? Like how it's kind of smushed in? And I don't know what it is about this face, but it feels like it's smaller than it's supposed to be. Like it's not as round. And it kind of makes it look less 3D because it's so flat. From certain angles, like let's say from like that angle, his face looks really small, doesn't it? Like it looks really compact, like it's really squished in. And I don't know if I like that. From certain angles it looks great, but from other angles it looks like it's really squished. And I think that's just the problem with turning 2D into 3D, especially in figure form. It's not the greatest. The hair is pretty good. It's got the dark green in it, and it has a little bit of the dark black shading as well. So the figure looks good hair-wise. There's lots of different little spikes in his hair. So you can see that here with all the little details. That's very cool. So this is like a younger Midoriya. As the series goes on, his face becomes a little mature, I find. And this is kind of like peak young Deku because his face is like very childlike. Big cheeks, he got his freckles. Midoriya has like 4 freckles on his face. I would say that this expression isn't the nicest for Deku figures. There's a lot of them that have come out in recent years, and this face expression is just okay, not like super impressive. The one thing I do want to mention is that for his neck sculpt, I'm going to pull his head off for this. This is really going to bother me because his face and neck sculpt is different colored, and that's gonna take off some points paint wise because it just looks terrible. Like it is a dark peach and his face is a light peach. What is going on with this figure? These Age of Hero figures have the same neck problem. Momo had it too, and it's just like this weird problem where the neck is darker. I think because they're like the neck is hidden behind his cowl, so they probably won't see it, but I see it because, you know, that's what I'm doing with these reviews. I'm looking really closely at these figures. Speaking of his cowl, his mouth guard, which Deku rarely uses anymore, it has some issues paint-wise. It looks pretty okay up close. It has issues with paint. So there are some spots where the paint isn't fully in and it's black. The hood itself is nice. It's nice and solid. It's got good weight to it too, and it does look like it's fabric flowing in the wind, so that's nice. It has the eye holes. If you're wondering, Deku's hood is actually a big, like, kind of looks like a bunny, but it's not actually a bunny. It's based on All Might's hairstyle that sticks up like this, and that's why Deku wears it, because he's a really big fan of All Might. He's a big fanboy. So All Might has a pretty easy name to understand, but what does Deku's name mean? Well, Deku's name is actually a misreading of his last name, Izuku. See, Deku has a friend named Bakugo, who's also his rival and resident jackass of the My Hero Academia series. And basically, Bakugo was misreading his name on purpose so that his name reads Deku Nobuo, which is like good for nothing. And it's basically a diss to Deku, and then Deku took that name and he got it used again, but this time by one of the female characters, Ochako, which I mentioned very often on this show, and she basically was like, hey, you know what, that's a good name. So Deku took that name up and was like, I'm gonna change the name because, you know what, go fuck yourself, Bakugo. The hood and cowl have slight issues. The cowl does have some paint issues where there's white bits on the hood. That's another problem with the paint that will take off some points. For the pose, now this pose is pretty iconic. I find that most of my hero characters have cartoonishly large fingers. I'm going to tell you something really interesting design wise. So games like Street Fighter, they intentionally draw the limbs, like the hands and the feet, bigger. You can detect where the hand and moves are coming from, which makes it easier to spot. You know, My Hero, it could be a stylish choice just to have bigger hands and feet, but it also might be a stylistic choice where you can see things more easily if they're bigger. Now, this is his Gamma Suit 2.0. As the series progresses, Deku's gloves get from being here or so to just going really long. I actually really love the long gloves. I really think it's great for this figure because it offsets the green a lot. I think it really balances out, especially with the black boots. They're alright. They're not really shaded that well. They're kind of a weird white. They have hints of I want to say gray in the paint job, so it looks kind of like dirty. And the weird thing with Deku is that his figures looks more dirty than Froppy and Momo. And I wonder if they were deciding to like make it more like battle damage realistic, and then they decided not to for the newer figures. Because like this one is heavily shadowed compared to Froppy and Momo, so I don't know if they kind of changed their mind on what the series line was going to look like, and that's why it looks this way. As for like the glove, like the lines on the blue are really nice. It's got really clean again lines, and there are little yellow buttons just underneath the arm. Shading wise, I saw this really weird thing on this arm. It might not be apparent unless I zoom in on it, but on the arm white part, there's a distinctive line where the shading begins, and it kind of throws off the paint bounce on this figure. There's also some minor scuff marks on the elbow on this arm. Like, I guess that's the whole look they're going for, but it doesn't make the character pop because the whole white, black, green mixture was really popping, especially on the screen. He also has the white shoulder pads too. Those also have bleeding issues where there's green and white, but being that thin, you can't really do much about that, being how it's so skinny on the side, so it's kind of impossible not to do anything about that. Is it just me, or does his back look like it shouldn't be bent that far back? Like, it looks like he's got like a spine issue going on his back, like it's going like woo, and like that's like standing wise it looks okay I guess, but I feel like it's just so far back in the pose. From the side, it looks really awkward. From the front, it's fine. It looks great. But from the side, it looks like it's just not quite there yet. And that might be a problem. It's kind of an iffy thing because like from the front, it looks okay. And from like certain angles, it looks fine. But right directly from this side, it looks very awkward. Like his back is too far back. There's a lot of shading on his arms and his body for the black and green mixture, like compared to Froppy. Like you can see how much darker it is compared to Froppy. It actually kind of affects the way the arms look. So he has black bands. Kind of went overboard on the arms, so it's really black on the black parts. In the back, it's also quite black as well. There's lots of folds. There is like really dark lines that kind of stick out too much. You know, there's overly roughing up a character, and then there's just like too much black, and I think that's the problem with this figure. It's just too dark. The red belt helps break out the green and black, but the red belt is not quite like shadowed, so it's kind of dull. And it's the same with like Froppy and Momo's belt. For some reason their accessories aren't as detailed as the rest of the outfit. Pant wise, like the crotch area looks pretty okay. There's lots of folding. I love Deku's Gamma boots. These black iron boots, they call them, are really cool because they're matte and they're shiny. And there's also like fabric folds in the like knee section. And then there's these big square like hard pieces right there, which are really awesome. So it took 3 whole seasons for Deku to realize that he could use his legs. He's like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? I can't use my arms. I know, let's use my legs. And you know what? We cried like little bitches. Honestly, it was the most surprising thing. Even when I was watching, I was just like, it didn't even occur to me that he's never used his legs the entire time. But when he used his legs, we all cried because it was like a moment of Deku growing up, and we were just all so proud of our little boy. Deku wears the heroic red shoe. In Japan, hero characters normally wear red. So he has splotches of red on his belt and his red shoes. Usually it's an accessory piece to most heroic characters, so you'll see red a lot. Like let's say One Piece's Luffy with the red vest. And that's the basis of like heroic colors, because in Japan red is considered like a courageous color. So you have red right here on the boot, and then there's the black overtones with like the armor casing. Boot strings are nice, they're made of plastic. They're also bendable, which is great. On the top of the red parts, there is paint missing on the red part. So again, it's gotten a lot of scuffs on that part, and I believe, let me see here. There's some scuffs on the back of the leg too, which I'll show you up close here. So the back of the leg also has some scuffs on it as well. The good thing is that the symbol, like the stamp of the company and where it's built, is on the leg, which is kind of nice. It's on the black part. Whenever you can hide it, that's always a good thing to do, so that's great. And I do want to mention that for Deku's shoes, because they're like a Converse sneaker, they have the imprints on them, so that's a nice little detail. They didn't have to do that, but they did it anyways. This is something you don't ever see, and just seeing that is a nice little bit of detail, because that adds a little bit of flavor to the boot and makes it look a little bit more authentic. Like, there's almost a paint problem on every part of his body. Well, I mean, this is the first of the line, so they have improved it. Like, Froppy is really nice. I think for this figure, body-wise, sculpt-wise, give it a 7 out of 10. As for the paint, there's a lot of paint issues. So this is going to be more like a 6 out of 10 for the paint. Oh, Deku stands on his own. There, you don't even need the base. That's nice. The base, just black. Nothing else. If your hands are moist, it will leave marks on the base. So overall, appearance-wise, it's a good figure for the general base price of like $30-ish. It is like 25 in Japanese currency, so it's a bit cheaper. Canadian dollar kind of sucks, so every time I buy anime models, it's just a crapshoot because everything is either too expensive or just like crazy import. Which, by the way, because of coronavirus, we've been having to get these models via DHL instead of our normal like EMS. Apparently, DHL has been charging us secretly for years with handling charges that they put on themselves that aren't actually import tax from the government. So I would recommend, if you guys are buying figures, to keep an eye on that, because there's a class action lawsuit against DHL. You might be paying extra on top of your import fees. So that is something to consider when you're looking at figures. It's kind of weird to talk about something like that, but you have to understand that when you're buying figures from across the sea, that you are aware of the charges that come with that. Because if you buy locally, you're going to end up paying more, because you're supporting local business, but you're also going to get a markup of like 20 to 30%, while this one's more like a markup based on just the provider that's shipping it to you. So that's a very important thing to know. So I thought I would mention this in this video because it was a very recent thing that happened. I think it's a class action lawsuit in Canada. I don't know if it affects other countries just yet, but it might get bigger, and it does affect people who have bought from DHL in the past and have suffered from like money problems because of the DHL adding on prices. And I know import tax wise, like $20-$30 figures become like $60-$70, and it's almost like, is it worth buying it online if it's going to be like that bad, especially during coronavirus when a lot of services are cut. I got sidetracked there for a second. Deku's body is good, his face is good. There's a lot of issues with the paint on this figure, which I'm kind of sad about. But I guess you could just chalk that up to battle damage, but the battle damage is the wrong color because it's like white or bleeding. So maybe you can't really chalk up to battle damage. Sometimes if the paint's bad, you can be like, oh, it's like battle damage, right? Especially the figure like is already darkened like this, so sometimes it's okay. But in this situation, there's a lot of little parts that are not quite nice, and that's really bad. It's a good figure, it's cheap, and it does what it is meant for. It's a prize figure that you win via crane, so it's not meant to be super expensive, so don't expect high quality. I would say the overall appearance score is a 7 out of 10. Not really bad, but it has a lot of work to do, especially in the paint department. So tallying up the score, that basically gives Midoriya a 64%. Ooh, that's bad. But for the most part, it's pretty much in line with the other Age of Heroes, Froppy and Momo. The Amazing Hero, again, was slightly better, and the Zoke Academy line is still top pick for me right now. If you guys like this episode, I would recommend looking at my other episodes. I just did the episode about Froppy, and an episode about Momo, and Denki, and Toga, and that's basically all the My Hero figures I have currently. So the My Hero the My Hero week is now over. I'm sure everybody wants to see less My Hero characters. I kind of want to see more, but we're going to be moving on to other figures in episode 11. So I'm glad you guys were able to watch up to episode 10 with me, and I'm very glad that you continue to watch these episodes. If you want to watch more, if you haven't already caught up, check out the other episodes. And I'll leave you with my weekly message. Bye!